Hello and welcome to today's news analysis. We are doing the Indian Express papers Chandigarh edition. Now from today's newspaper, some important insights. So we hear about a case of Kerala blasts, right? So a Kerala blast had taken place. Now from here we can take up the topic of radicalization. This is a very important topic from the point of view of internal security, GS3. Then we have a train accident that took place in Andhra Pradesh. So again, the issue of rail safety comes to light. We should prepare this. I will share with you a PRS document on the Telegram. So that will help you. Then we straight away jump to the editorial and opinion section. Over there is a discussion on the recent UNGA vote in which India abstained. This was about the Gaza violence, right? So truth should be there in Gaza. Then there is one concerning economy, wherein there is a criticism and about the open market operations that RBI has recently launched to deal with the issue of inflation. Then again, a criticism of export restrictions on basmati rice. So important issues, we will briefly cover them. Then we have world news. Then we have economy related news. We get to know that there is a Niti Aayog document which says that by 2047, India will be a $30 trillion economy. Presently, we are at $3.8 trillion. So the roadmap, it will come by December actually, this document. So roadmap, etc. will come over here. Now, even essay topics like the dreams that don't let you sleep or should not let India sleep. So there again, you can quote these facts. Then we have an explainer. In explained section, we get to know about Israel war and how we should deal with the conflict and post-conflict. Very good insights we get. Then there is an explainer that India did not follow the China model of growth. And is it valid today? Again, something which is important, in the present circumstances, how we should look at it. Is basically saying that from farming to agriculture to industrialization. Now, it may not be relevant in India's case in the present scenario. So it's important. GS3. Okay, coming to the first news. So we hear about IED blast at Kerala religious gathering. So there is a Christian group of Jehovah, right? So this person put an IED, improvised explosive device, 2 killed, 51 wounded, and this person himself belonged to this community, but he was upset. He was estranged by this group. He posted a video after the blast and he said that he's not happy with these people and they are anti-national and all. He said that thing. Later this video was removed. Now, what we can look at it from exam point of view, we see a person who is radicalized, who has been radicalized. Now, let us look at the static portion of radicalization. Okay. So, radicalization refers to a process of a person's transformation, a moderate law-abiding citizen becoming anti-state, violent person. So this may happen because of a person's influence to the news events, to fake news, WhatsApp, social media, etc. So this person was radicalized and he decided to take matters into his own hands and engaged in violent activity. So this is important. You should know about radicalization and the measures to address radicalization. So we have one GS Bajpai committee, which says that radicalization related provisions should be added to the UAPA. Then we should have soft policing approach so that those youth who are misguided should not be straight away sent to the jail, but soft counseling, etc. should be done. The government should come up with a de-radicalization policy. And of course, we should regulate the social media and fake news. Now, if we just complicate this further, with radicalization, we can also add to the topic of lone wolf attacks. That a person, it's normally associated with the Islamic State. So, a person, not directly part of the organization, but is influenced by the propaganda, let's say Islamic State, and he gets a guidebook as to how violence or this person can inflict pain. So this person is basically radicalized by the propaganda, and then he engages in anti-state violent activities. So it is again a function of radicalization. Now we move on to this unfortunate accident that took place. Okay, this is again in Odisha, the Andhra train. So, but it's reported from Bhubaneswar. So again, a train accident that has taken place, and this brings to light the following issues: the issue of rail safety. What are the causes? How many accidents are taking place? What are the causes? And what are the recommendations that have been made? Your model GS answer should have these components. Then there is a Bibek Debroy committee which talked about the restructuring of the railways. Now I'll share with you this document from the PRS, so Safety in Indian Railways. Here you get to know about the causes of the rail accidents, plus how many accidents are taking place, a fact that you can quote in your answer writing. Okay, so you get it. Besides this, I got this from the PIB, which tells us about the measures being taken to improve rail safety. So relaying of new tracks, creation of Rashtriya Rail Sanraksha Kosh, a fund for safety, rail safety. Sanrakshana means security or safety. Okay. Using the Kavach platform for anti-collision, filling up of rail vacancies. So all these points are there from the PIB. So if you take these two together, you can get a good model answer on rail safety. I'll share it with you on the Telegram. If you haven't joined yet, it is always there in the description box. The second link is on this thing. Briefly about stubble burning. So we get to know that stubble burning has decreased, or farm fires have dipped in Punjab, Haryana, Delhi, dipped by about 50%. While we see a case of rise in UP, MP, Rajasthan areas. Now today I'm not discussing, but what are the issues associated with stubble burning? Why is it happening? And what steps are in place, right? So that is something that you can work. I've already discussed it multiple times. Today I'm not doing it. Okay. Modi, Prime Minister Modi, talks to Egypt's President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi. So this is about the Gaza violence that is taking place. So he's basically dialing to them, and he's dialed many other leaders from the Arab bloc, the moderate faces of the Arab bloc, that there should be early peace process. So that is one thing, that there should be truce in the Gaza. Second thing, of course, is that India wants to maintain positive relations with both Israel as well as the Arab bloc. So one hand, India says they are with Israel in this difficult time, but at the same time, they say that we abide by the Palestinian issue. Because Arab people, Indians, we have the significant amount of diaspora in West Asia. About 90 lakh Indians work in Asia, so that diaspora is there. Plus, important is energy security. From West Asia region, which includes Egypt, is actually Africa, but it's just west of West Asia. So 50% of energy, crude, etc., is coming from the Middle East or West Asia. Then we can, of course, add to this aspect of capital. These countries are very rich because they export oil. And this capital, we want this capital so that we can use this for human development in India. So these are some of the pointers why Arab is important, Arab bloc. And yes, of course, diplomatic support is always there. Okay, same thing will be discussed later in the opinion section as well. Today is the World Strokes Day. Not today, actually yesterday. So 29th of October is the World Strokes Day. And of course, we're talking about heart ailment. So, and it is concerned with hypertension. So briefly, a fact on this issue. Who knows if it is asked in the mains paper also. So you should have the facts. So basically, it is saying that 188.3 million people in India suffer from hypertension, and hypertension, high BP, etc., leads to stroke. So 188.3. So this we can simplify it as 18.3 crore people suffer from hypertension and therefore they are at risk of stroke. Diabetic people are also at risk of stroke. Okay, 18.3. Now of these 18.3 crores, only 37% get diagnosed, which is a very small number. And of this, only 30% get treatment. Now the number of people who are getting treated is very, very, very low. So if we can deal with this early cases, we can deal with this early cases, then we can address the issue of strokes also. We can reduce the incidence of strokes. Now for this, what needs to be done? We need to do hypertension screening. Anybody, let's say above the age of 30, when they go to the hospital, just make it mandatory for the BP to be checked. The nursing staff should be trained in this, right? Then door-to-door survey can be done with the help of ASHA workers, etc. So that can be done. And with hypertension ailment, first of all, the effort should be made that they are treated at primary healthcare centers. So that capacity should be improved over there rather than the disease, hypertension getting worse and getting into a complicated disease and the patients going to tertiary healthcare. So basically saying, in short, move towards preventive care than curative care. Now we have the editorial opinion section. So first of all, the articles that I'm ruling out. So one is this, Nawaz Sharif's return to Pakistan, and now he will need the political support of the Pakistani army. We are not interested as a whole actually. Coffee with the new Karan? No, we are not interested. Right, so these articles we are not doing, and para athletes have done well. We should know the names for prelims, etc., but not discussing it. Now coming to the first editorial, the change and challenge. So this article is basically talking about India's abstention on the Arab resolution. Arab resolution calling for humanitarian truce in Gaza. Right. So there was a UNGA resolution brought in by Jordan. So Jordan brought in the resolution that there should be truce in Gaza. There should be peace, human truce in Gaza. Fine. India said we are not voting. India decided not to vote. Now India has two options. India can either vote in favor of the truce, or India does not vote. India says we are not attending it only. It refused to take any stance over there, thereby the term abstention. Now, why is that? India says that, see, this truce you're talking about, this resolution does not condemn explicitly the violence caused by Hamas. You're not talking about the violence caused by Hamas. You're only saying that Israel has done the strike and there should be truce. So you're not condemning the causes of this. And India has taken this as an opportunity to say that, see, this is an issue of terrorism. Terrorism affects everybody, and we stand with this stand. So India has used this technical approach, procedural, technical aspects, so that India can refuse to take a stand or abstain from taking a stand. That is what India has done because it does not want to annoy both Israel as well as Palestine or the Arab bloc. So India at UNGA abstained from voting, which talked about the truce in Gaza. The technical reason that the government has stated, I have told you. The actual reason is the change in the foreign policy outlook. And that is the change that we're talking about. Change in the headline. The change that we see is the change from idealism to pragmatism. So India's regional policy or the foreign policy is evolving from that of an idealistic approach that violence should not be there, etc. To we see a hard, calculated approach where India's interests are protected. So from idealism to pragmatism. And here again, the challenge for India is how it maintains relationship with the violence that is taking place. India may be required to take a stand if it is with Arabs or with Israel. So the challenge is how it balances and is able to maintain positive relations with both the groups. So that is the thing. So first we see this idealism, from idealism to pragmatism. We see, as the author says, replacing the traditional diplomatic formalism to a defensive political correctness with a policy of hard-headed assessment of shifting regional dynamic and enduring India's interests, especially in relation to terrorism. A line that you can actually quote in your conclusions. So when you say, sir, how do I improve our answer writing, conclusion, etc., you can quote these things. That's the only reason I'm reading it. Okay. Now, what can India do? India should, of course, have an outreach to with the Arab bloc and explain its position. And the same thing, the article just says this much, but same should also be replicated with the West and the Israel. Second, it should insulate these events with the domestic politics. Right? Do not mix domestic politics with the events that are taking place. Both BJP and Congress are doing it. So that maturity needs to be reflected. You don't have to explain all that. Just say insulate from domestic politics. That's all. Next, this is about agri exports. So, restricting agri exports limits gains in global markets, prioritizes domestic consumers over farmers. I think this statement in itself is self-explanatory and it overall explains the issue at hand. So first of all, we hear that the government, because of concerns about food security, it has brought in a restriction on exports. So with the basmati rice, it is saying that there will be a minimum export price, that only if it is above this price, you can export. And this is very high, $1,200 per ton. And this is not just with the basmatis, but it is with other types of rice as well. And India happens to be the largest exporter of rice with a share of 40% in global exports as of 22-23. Fine. So agri exports are basically being restricted so that India does not export rice, so that the rice is available for the domestic markets and we can keep the prices in check. And this more so during the election years. We want to price stability should be there. But in doing so, the farmer's ability to earn extra income is affected. So, farmers' restriction on exports, there is an restriction on exports to protect the domestic consumer. But in this, the farmers' interests are getting undermined because they are not able to discover the best price for themselves. They are exporting because, of course, they're getting better value in the export markets, in the global markets. This is so. What is happening is the government is choosing the consumer instead of the farmer. That is the basic issue over here. Second, we can say is that India is already the leading exporter. India has a well-established market in the global. There is an acceptance. Now, if India does not supply, of course, it affects, affects the reliability of India as a trade partner. Plus, there will be less confidence on importing from India in the future. So, in the long run, it will affect the farmers' welfare. Then, these restrictions are an example of a knee-jerk reaction. You decide someday you change the policy, then you again do something. So these are unpredictable. We want an agricultural export policy which is predictable, based on predictability. It benefits the farmers, it benefits consumers, it benefits everybody. Okay, farm incomes will come down. Plus, India's voice as India's role as a provider of food security, especially in the Africa region, so that will also get undermined. Okay. Now, personally, I would like to say one thing over here that when we export rice, we export water, right? So, in general, I feel that rice exports should be avoided. We should focus more on importing rice. We should focus on other crops. Okay, so that's it. Yeah, one more thing. It says that domestic consumers, for welfare of food pricing, etc. But it says that significant amount of population are beneficiaries of the National Food Security Act, the public distribution system, where whether grains are provided at a subsidy. So it's It's pandering to the vote bank more than anything else over here. Next, two wrong prescription. Okay, fine. This is about the RBI. Just ignore this. Just focus over here, right? It will help. As he's from SBI. Okay, fine. Recently, RBI had this monetary policy committee, right? So MPC meeting had taken place, in which it decided to keep the rates unchanged, right? Repo rates unchanged. So this happens at a time when inflation was above the threshold level of 6%. So it was 6.47%. So even then, the RBI decided that we will not increase the rates. Normally, RBI will increase the rate to reduce the supply of money in the economy. They said that, see, the 6% is because of food increase, fuel price increase, and this is not beyond our control, and this is basically supply side issues. This is not because of money, but it is actually logistical issues, and eventually this will come down automatically. It will come down. We don't have to take any policy change. So RBI said this, fine. On the other hand, simultaneously, actually, RBI came up with open market operations to squeeze out excess liquidity from the economy. So one hand, RBI says we don't have to do anything, but on the other hand, RBI comes up with open market operations, wherein RBI sells bonds. So when they sell bond, they get capital. Fine. So they sell bond, they get capital. So the liquidity is taken from the economy as a result. So this is a de facto tightening. RBI has not increased the rates, but at the same time, the money from the economy has been taken. So this actually resulted in the bond yields in India going up. Fine. The bond yields had gone up because of this. So when the RBI governor announced, very soon the bond yields increased. That is return on the bond, buying and selling plus the coupon rate. Okay. And so this has affected. Okay. Then the next thing was loan interest rates. If the bond yield increases, then the banks will also have to increase their interest rates so that money comes to the banks and not go, all the money should not go to the bonds. Banks need money to operate. So when the bond yield increases, the bank interest rates increase. So the loan rates will increase. So this has affected the welfare of those who get these unsecured loans, especially. So significant amount of people who depend on unsecured loans, microfinance industries, farmers, etc. So their welfare is compromised. That is what the author is saying. So thereby, two wrong prescriptions. Then currency, we should also look at it from currency point of view. And this is actually a positive. You see the US bond yield has increased. So when the US bond yield has increased, we expect the money from India and elsewhere to go to US. Now, when this happens, the value of dollar will appreciate because there is selling of dollars by the US investors, etc. So they will sell the rupees, buy dollars, and go to USA, invest in the US bonds because of the better rates. Okay, so US yield has increased. So we want that Indian yield should also increase, Indian bond yield. So this will protect the currency, which it has been able to do to some extent because the rupee compared to other currencies has dropped the least vis-a-vis the dollar. Okay, so basically what we understand over here is RBI open market operation and a bit of a correlation. Now, very brief international news. Israel Defense Forces undertake ground offensive in Gaza. Situation is not very good. People raid the warehouses, etc. for the need of food. Next, this is about US-China. So the Chinese Foreign Minister, Mr. Wang, says that road to Xi Biden meet. Xi is the president of China and Biden is, of course, US. So their meeting taking place in San Francisco. It is expected it will not be smooth. This path is not smooth. There are certain challenges. There are certain roadblocks. Now, what are the challenges between the two? Just summed up some of the issues actually. So one concern is about the spying, that China is spying upon the US, and there was also a spy balloon that was found, a Chinese balloon, which was used for spying, and it was shot by the US. That is one issue. There is also a concern that these Chinese companies like Huawei and ZTE, they have this hardware which is used for this high-speed internet. So this may be used to relay information back to China. So espionage-related activities. So spying, basically. Okay. Then there is tariff war taking place between the two countries, happening since the time of Donald Trump. Then the concerns of the US with respect to the Belt and Road Initiative, and US coming up with counter programs like Indo-Pacific Economic Framework. Okay, Indo-Pacific Economic Framework. So these are some of the things. Then the US companies are coming up with China plus one strategy. That is, they invest in China plus another country as an alternative. And on the other hand, we hear about US imposing restrictions on sharing of technology, etc., with China. And China, to counter that, has come up with 1,000 Talents program. Right, so some of the things. And yes, South China Sea dispute and all those things we can also add. Next, we hear about Nepal peace process. The Nepal Prime Minister, whose title is Prachanda, actually, Pushpa Kumar Dahal Prachanda, he invites the UN. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres is in this thing. So, so thereby he's appealing to the UNSG that UN should play a role in Nepal peace process. Now the question arises, what is this Nepal peace process? So Nepal peace process is also known as Comprehensive Peace Accord. This came up in 2006. It is about the peace between the government of Nepal and the Maoist. So between the two. The summary is mentioned over here and a bit here. So basically they're saying that the Maoists who were engaging in violence, etc., they should be given amnesty. They should be given amnesty for all the violence they have done. Amnesty means maafi. And in fact, interestingly, even Prashant was a Maoist leader who is now the prime minister. Even he wants the amnesty. Second, the Maoists have, at the present moment, they have been stationed in temporary cantonments. So they are blocked into temporary cantonments. So they should be given amnesty and they should be rehabilitated so that they lead normal lives. Then one more suggestion was that Maoists, since they're already trained in warfare, they should be recruited in the armed forces of Nepal. Next is the economy-related news. Sikim project destroyed. Okay, so this Sikim project which was destroyed is basically this Chongtang Dam. And this is built on the river Teesta. Previously, questions have been asked about the Teesta River and it flowing through which countries. You must be aware that Teesta flows through the Sikkim, then West Bengal, and then Bangladesh. West Bengal, Bangladesh, they have the dispute with respect to Teesta River. And why did this dam get destroyed? What was the flood? So this flood was actually because of glacial lake burst. So glacial lake outburst. Because of that, there was a flood, which is known as GLOF. I've also previously told you that you should prepare a short note about the GLOF, right? Again, same pattern is same, causes, remedial measures. So that has to be done. Okay, next article. In higher income tax slabs, better compliance and upward mobility. Okay. So basically, we're talking about income tax. So this is a direct tax. So this comes under Central Board of Direct Tax. So CBDT is basically appreciating that they have done good effort, and more people are filing the ITRs. So 6.75 crore ITRs have been filed. Uh, Friday news, we discussed that this is indicative of widening of tax base. That is, more people are filing taxes. Tax collection is also increasing, right? So more people. So the secretary of the CBDT said that people are doing well. Thereby, they are coming into the higher tax slabs. So okay, so those were the arguments which is there in today's news. It was there on Friday as well. Congress is saying, we don't believe you. And these are important facts, by the way. So they are saying that, see, top 1% of income tax payers, they made 17% of all income. They made 17% of all income in 2013, 2014. So this 17% is now increased to, this is increased to 23%. So this is indicative of income inequality. And this is something that you can use in your answer writing, especially on a topic like inclusive growth. Okay, so this is happening. And top 1% of taxpayer, naturally, if their contribution and tax is increasing, their incomes is also increasing. So they saw their income grow by 13% year on year basis. So every year, 13% by 13%, it is increasing. For top 1%, not for the lower rung. Okay. Now, brief analysis of the Israel war and implications for it. So there are now two ways of looking at it. So one is the post-conflict, and the other thing is about what if the war goes longer. So if it goes longer, it will be turning from bad, which is already bad, to worse. So there are two aspects to this particular article. So the first one is basically lessons from Iraq, which tells us about that Israel should focus on post-conflict reconciliation. So I'm saying lessons from Iraq. So there is a former director of CIA, General David Petraeus. So he's saying that Israel should take lessons from the US in Iraq. So when the US invaded Iraq, they were able to get to Baghdad and everything, right? But once the war was over, they went back. They decided to go back. They did not decide as to how they will deal with the post-conflict aspect. So once they decided to go back, very soon we heard about emergence of several militant groups and the Islamic State also. So this country went into complete chaos after the war was over. War already it was bad. After the war, it got even worse. Why? Many of the soldiers of the armed forces of Iraq, they joined the ranks of the militant groups. Plus, the bureaucracy was not reconciliated. The bureaucracy which runs the government, which is responsible for governance, etc., they were not reconciliated. They were asked to retire or fire. So they need to, Israel also needs to learn from this, that okay, today you're doing this bombing in Gaza, you're fighting against Hamas, but what afterwards, after you leave? Because things may actually go from bad to worse if you don't focus on post-conflict reconciliation. Second aspect, the war may get more prolonged. Actually, that's the thing. We're already saying that the war is stretching now. We are 3 weeks into the war. Okay. So if the war is prolonged, if the war is prolonged, we will see a greater death toll in Gaza. Fine. We already see how it is a humanitarian crisis. Okay, next. It may be possible that the war expands to other countries in the region. We already see that this is Israel, this is Gaza Strip, this is West Bank. Israel is striking on the north, where there is Lebanon. In Lebanon, there is a militant group known as Hezbollah, which is again sympathetic to the Palestinian cause. So they were fighting missiles, Israel is also fighting. So now they're fighting here and here in the northern. And who knows, in the future, this war expands to other countries as well. So this will not bode well. If you look at the West Asia map, Israel borders Middle East. To the south is the Suez Canal, which connects Asia with Europe. And of course, it connects India with Europe as well. So it will affect the sea lanes of communication. It will affect trade. It will affect stability. It will affect peace in that region. So it does not bode well for the economy. And what if Arab nations imposed sanctions on oil? We already heard that about 50% of oil comes from the Arab bloc, at least from India's case. So in that case, of course, if they put an embargo on oil and all those things, then oil prices will go up. It will affect energy security, right? It will affect the current account deficit will increase, dollar will increase, rupee will depreciate. So all these issues. Last article for the day. China model that India did not follow. Okay. China model is very simple, from farming or agriculture to industrialization and then maybe to service sector. We have all studied it actually in school, even at start of your UPSC preparation in the economy section. One of the first things your teacher may have taught you. Okay. In 1954, a Nobel Prize winner, William Lewis, William Arthur Lewis, he wrote an influential paper known as Economic Development with Unlimited Supply of Labor. So he wrote this paper, and wherein he said that we need these developing economies to move from subsistence to capitalist sector. Subsistence means basic needs to capitalist sector. So again, it means from farm to industry. And for this, he suggested that there's a lot of people who are engaged in farming activities. If we look at their marginal productivity, that is how much each person is contributing, many of them are not contributing at all. So just move them into the industrial sector, manufacturing sector, basically. So just move them over there. How to move them? Just offer them a remuneration that is higher than what they are earning in subsistence economy in the farm. Just offer them of higher than that, because in that case what will happen is we are getting low cost labor. That much is enough to incentivize them to move to capital sector. Okay, so that was the idea. With capital sector, they work over there, they each contribute, the industry grows, the labor class earns, their welfare is protected, all those things not mentioned here, by the way. Now, if we look at the overall over the years, we see that the farm sector, the number of people employed in the agriculture sector has come down. So in the 90s, 1993, 1994, it was 64.6%, or roughly 2/3 of the population. It has come down to 48%, or roughly half of the population. So the share of people engaged in the farm sector has come down. Right, it has come down. But interestingly, they have not gone to the manufacturing sector. The share of people in the manufacturing sector has not gone up. In fact, if we look at other sectors of the secondary economy, be it construction, hotels, trade, hotels and restaurants, their share is more than the manufacturing sector. Now, for whatever reason, manufacturing sector did not grow, or for whatever reason, people did not move to the manufacturing sector. We can say in Lewis's terminology, from subsistence to capitalist sector. That did not happen. Okay, China, they were able to do, but India could not do it. Now jump to the present times. Because from 90s and all, we are in 2020s, right? 30 years from the data that we're taking over here. So come to the present times. Is this relevant today? Is this relevant? That's an issue, because India still has the youngest population, youthful population. We have the demographic dividend, etc. But the thing is that in today's world, in the capitalist sector, they are looking at replacement of the labor. We are seeing the trend of artificial intelligence and machine learning. So maybe even if we go to the capital sector, they are actually ways of reducing the labor force, and maybe the industrialists would look into automation and other things. So the work may not be available. Plus, the manufacturing sector is too capital intensive. Barring a few examples like textile, leather, automobile sector, etc., is very expensive. The number of employment created per thousand of crores investment put, the employment is very less. So huge amount of money required, huge amount of capital required to move them into capitalist sector. Plus, AI and machine learning are coming up as a challenge. So what can be done? So there is a research paper by Niti Aayog, opinion of Mr. Chand, who's a member of Niti Aayog. He says that we need to look at alternative sectors, which to me is again in a way manufacturing. So he says that we need to look at identify sectors. One is of course textiles. Second is food processing, right? So that can also be labor intensive. So food processing can be looked at. Then waste management and new emerging sunrise sectors. So those can be identified where labor can be absorbed.